All right, so, oh, lovely, we're over there. We look lovely. Great, so, hi again, guys. Thank you so much for the patience and for joining us, even though it's a very lovely, sunny day. There are so many other things one could be doing by being here with us, but we hope we will have a very wonderful conversation. I'm really excited about this. You know, we've been planning this for a long time, and so I'm really excited. So the program outline is that we have a couple of questions that we would ask the authors, and they would take turns to answer. And then we'll have a Q&A, so the audience can, you know, rain questions on you. And then we will have a book signing. So we have Rosebud, and first I must say a huge shout out to Rosebud for hosting us. This is brilliant. So we'll have the Q&A, and then we'll follow it up with the book signing. So without much ado, let's start. So for the audience, if you could each introduce yourselves and maybe tell us a bit about your work. Yeah.
Hello. Okay, so good afternoon, everybody. My name is Wendy Luvinga. I am from Tanzania, but I've been living in Finland for the past almost 15 years. And I work in development cooperation field, but I write children books. And so I started to write because of my daughter. When she was born and I was at home missing the story I heard while I was growing up in Tanzania. And so I started just by memorizing and collecting. Because as you know, in Tanzania we have, in most of African culture, it's mainly oral culture. So you will have a lot of story, but you wouldn't find a book sometimes. So I was like, okay, let me try to recall and put them down. So I made a collection of the story that I remember, or I called my aunt and put down stuff like that. And then at some point I was like, you know what, let me just publish. So then I think my first book was published in 2016. And in my writing, I'm mainly based on African tradition. I'm very much inspired by African storytelling tradition, so that's the element that I'm all the time like aware and infusing in my writing. Yeah, maybe I stay here.
Hi. Well, it seems that Tanzania is in the house. My name is Neymar Comba. I am also from Tanzania, but I've only lived here. This is my 4th year. I moved here in 2019. I am a doctoral student at Hanken School of Economics, where I study entrepreneurship in the intersection with corruption. But I am also an entrepreneur. I have a small company in Tanzania that manufactures soap and oils, like natural mosquito repellents and stuff. And I have been writing since I was 12 years old, so it's been something that I've done most of my life, I would say. I've written different genres. My first genre when I was maybe starting out was meaningless love stories when I had never been in love. It was all about boys. And then I think I went into poetry, and that was a phase where I was going through some trauma, and I used poetry to process my trauma and anger and, I don't know, teenage angst and everything. So I've written poetry the most, and my first book was in poetry back in 2012. I've written a few short stories that are featured in different anthologies, like Payback and Other Stories, which is a feature of stories from different writers across the continent. I've also been featured in in a nonfiction anthology as well. So maybe I like to experiment a lot, and I very recently actually tried to write a children's book. I'm not sure if it succeeded. It's not yet out, but yeah, so I was part of a project, and it was a fun experience though. So yeah, I write different genres, I experiment a lot. Don't know where the stories come from. I don't really have a very valid reason, honestly. I think I like to write, so whatever comes, I write, yeah.
Right, lovely. So I know you both already touched on, when you started writing, and sort of for you, Wendy, the moment of epiphany was when, I need books for my kids, and you've also shared that as well. But just a quick one. Maybe just for the audience, how many books have you each written? And do you have a favorite? Can you even ask an author which one is their favorite book? And are you sort of building a sort of a collection, or are the books going to be just standalone? Because I know some authors work towards a sort of a collection. So do you have a favorite book? How many books? And then would there be a collection?
Wow. Yeah, so not so many books. I'm still calling myself emerging author. I'm still emerging, I guess. Yeah, so I have published 2 books, which are published in different languages. So the first one was published in Swahili and English, and the second one was published in Turkish, Finnish, and English, and in Swahili, one being in the process now. And I think my favorite book was the one that, the first one, because I didn't know that, unlike Neymar, who I've been writing since 12, I have not writing since 12. And I've never thought that I would become a writer. All my writing was relating to school, so I would write a master thesis and all this kind of thing, but not like writing story. But that came out of frustration that I go to the library or bookshop and I don't find, story that speaks the value that I want to my kids to also growing up hearing. And that's when I started to kind of write. So I would say my favorite was the first book, because I never thought I would be published. And then when I wrote, and then in Finland, I didn't have any network. I didn't know anybody. So I only sent in US. US, that's where the publisher is based, who published my first book. And immediately they were like, yeah, we love this. We're going to publish. I was like, what? I'm going to be an author, and then my book will be in Amazon. I mean, it was the whole euphoria, because I thought that I was just only writing for my daughter. But then later, going on, and when I heard that if there's a book that you want and it's not there, then go and write. I was like, okay, yeah, hell yeah, I put the books out there. So the book was called Hamisi Complaining Lizard, and it's just about, of course, most of African stories are animal characters, but behind it there's a lot of teaching and values and lessons that even as human we take it. And actually it's even more safe to play with animal character, because you can load them with all this kind of thing that you want to pass on without offending anybody, So it's about this lizard who likes to complain, despite that he have everything, and then he complains, and that doesn't recognize his own strength and what he has, and so sometimes I also say to my kids, like, hey, when I was growing up, I didn't have a toy. I had nothing. And all this, even if you make your own toys and you're still happy. But I see, here in Western world, where kids, they have everything, but it's never enough, you want and want and want. And so sometimes I'm just like, if my kids complain, I'm like, you know what, let's read a book about lizard. But I'm like, I hope you get this message, that, you can just be happy with very little in life, and you don't have to all the time, acquire some stuff, yeah.
Well, I don't really know. I have 2 published books, lots of unpublished manuscripts, and because I was based in Tanzania most of my life, publishing is a very difficult endeavor. So, first of all, since I'm a poet, you get a lot of rejections being a poet. The first thing is nobody wants to publish poets. At least in Tanzania, there's a lot of friction there. But I think one of the reasons you can think about why no one wants to publish poetry is they claim that there aren't enough readers, but poetry is such a really ingrained in, for example, Swahili culture, and so it's always fascinating. I've published my first book, self-published my first book too. It was kind of like maybe a middle finger to people who were rejecting me all the time. And on the other hand, it was also sort of telling the world that I'm here and I have something to say and I really want to say it. But I hate the book.
You don't have a favorite.
Now I hate it because
Oh, no.
I have grown, with poetry, this happens a lot, You outgrow your angst, you outgrow everything, and I'm looking at this and I'm like, I cannot believe I wrote this for the world. So it's out of print, but it's free online. Okay. You can find it in my website.
Yeah, okay.
If you want to put yourself through the pain of reading my, early 20s. I like my second book, but it was really hard to write. It was a nonfiction book. I had not planned on writing it that way. The story itself is about a lady who had been suffering from cancer for 12 years and her struggle through it. And she had seen that I had won an award in flash fiction, and somehow she thought, you should write my life story. And I was like, do you know flash fiction is very short? But she did want to use her experience and use the book to actually help others, because it's very difficult for people with cancer to get proper Medicare and stuff like that. So the book is also part of that. So people who buy the book, the money goes straight into helping cancer efforts in Tanzania. So, yeah, those are my only two books, and lots of short stories and stuff that are just loose, not in books. Yeah.
Great. So we'll circle back to so many things that you've talked about, but I just wanted to ask, when you write, what does your family think about your writing, and do you sort of drag them into the process when you write? Like when you were writing Hamisi, like did you consult them or?
I drag my kids. I mean, they're the first one who have to hear my story when I'm writing. And at times, I remember, as I said, I'm very inspired by African storytelling tradition. And then some of the stories, like now when I look back, some of the story we heard when we were young, when I try to tell to my kids, they are shocked. Like, that is not, I mean, like, how can you say like that? But then I was like, when I was growing up, I was hearing them, and I thought that they are so good. But so then, of course, the time have changes. My kids are growing up in Finland. Now there's all, the children are much more, I don't know, I guess. Because, for example, there's a story, I don't know if you know, the very common story about the tortoise. And they were running competition, and then the hare and the tortoise, but then the tortoise cheat, and he was like ahead. And then when I tell to my daughter, I remember that when I told to my daughter, because I wanted to kind of modify or do something else with that story, and then she was like, no, I wouldn't listen to that. That is huijari, say on cheating. And I was like, but I heard that story when I was young, and I thought that this tortoise was so cool. Like, he managed to find his way to survive in a difficult situation. But my daughter was like, no, like surviving, you have to follow the rules. Okay. So, I mean, I consult also my family and my kids. They're the one who hear all this story, and I get feedback, and of course also my husband sometimes. And yeah, but I really agree with what Neymar was saying. Like, also when I was growing up in Tanzania, I've never thought that I would publish, and most of the publisher, they are like old male. I mean, you wouldn't find nobody to publish your story. I mean, it was like, yeah, we have enough story, and they don't get this, that everybody have a story to tell, and it's not yet enough. We are not getting enough for all the voices to come, but yeah.
But what do they think about your writing? Have they grilled you or been honest, like?
I think, my son is young, so he loves it. My daughter sometimes critiques it, but yeah.
How about you, Neymar?
Well, that would be a long story. I mean, I started writing when I was in the onset of teenage years. So you can imagine you don't want your parents to find anything that you write. I remember one time, actually, my mom caught one of the things I had written, and she saw that I used the F word. And she said, I cannot believe this. Is this how you're projecting me into the world? Like, this is how you're representing me? I was like, how am I representing you in my writing? So I think it's going through phases. And then when I did my first poetry book, so picture this, I just graduated with a degree in accounting, and I come home and I said, Mom, I want to be a poet, and I have a book. Yep. Imagine that conversation with an African parent who paid for you to study abroad, and you come home with this, I want to be a poet nonsense. So that didn't go so well either. But then my dad once quoted me back to me around the same time, and I don't know, it was such a cool moment because I didn't expect it. He had read it back to back and remembered and quoted me, and I was like, huh. It was strange to hear that back. And yeah, so that was a long time ago. Now I think I torture my husband with drafts. I have a lot of drafts. So, and sentences, like, you know, how one sentence can morph, it can be a lot. So maybe he hears the same sentence 20 times. Is it good this way? Oh, is it good this way? Oh, is it good that way? And it's just one sentence. That's not even a chapter. So I think, yeah, so my family is involved. My parents are very supportive now. I would say when I was just starting, I didn't always feel like they understood me because they wanted a secure future for me, you know, like, you know, be an accountant. And then it was hard to explain that I wanted to do other things. My plan A was be a poet. My plan B is be an entrepreneur. Not really good plans at all. So it was kind of, yeah. So, but I did get their support eventually. I don't think they understand me now. They just say, okay, you're our kid, so if we don't love you, no one else would. So I think I've reached that point, yeah. But there, yeah.
Okay, that's great. So before we dive into the author's mind, why we're here, which author has inspired you to write, or who has inspired you to write?
Yeah, good question, really. I would say that I used to read a lot of books when I was in Tanzania, and then here. But then when I remember purposely when I came here, I was like, you know what? From now on, I will read only African authors. So I had a collection. Like I would go to the library, I buy online, and I was mainly looking for African authors. And then so Chimamanda, I've read like in the beginning, and I really love how the sort of inspired by authentic voice, like regardless, because sometimes when as a writer you're writing, but then you don't want to say some things, you know, you want to fit in a certain box. So if there's let's say some traditions which are valuable to you, but then you are worried what the world will say, is this very backward, uncivilized, you know, like this. But then unapologetically telling from your own voice what is important to you. So I really love her writing, and that's what at least I'm aspiring to be.
So Chimamanda.
Yes.
What about you, Neymar?
Oh my God, this is such a loaded question because then I always feel a lot of pressure. Like if I don't mention someone who's somehow inspired me, what is it going to be? And if I just mention a West African writer and I haven't mentioned an East African writer, there's like a whole conversation going in my head right now. But I'll start maybe shortly. When I was maybe 13, 14, we read in class The Torn Veil. It was a collection of short stories, and this one was edited by Damco Mabel, and I think she had written also The Torn Veil herself. And we had read it in class, and at that time I was just writing these nonsense boy stories, and here it was something about how the women are buried alive and the men dance pom-poms on their graves. And it was such a striking line. And I thought, I don't know anything about the world. I'm going to stop writing until I have enough, like, let's say, I don't know, depth. So, yeah. So 14-year-old me, completely flabbergasted by this line. Of course, at that time, we were reading like Ngugi and Chinua Achebe and Tanzanian authors like Amandina Lihamba and Ngoswe, what's his name, Edwin Semzaba. So we were reading different writers at that time. They were, but it was that line that made me want to write very intensely, so I'm a very intense person after that point.
So that was the moment.
Yeah, so yeah. You can see that I also like very intense writers, like Toni Morrison is definitely my favorite. I just love that intensity and it resonates well with me. Poetry-wise, I love a lot of different writers, but of course we have to give the nod to Okot Pibitek because somehow I felt like we read that one and it was like, yay. And I also love this one poet from Tanzania. His name is Andanenga. I think I'm inspired by him, not necessarily when we were reading him in school, but when I met him and he recites his poetry and sings in the way Tanzanian poets do, and I just love that, and that really, really inspires me. Yeah.
Right, wonderful. So, I see Faisa is here, so if we'll welcome Faisa to the stage. A round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. So, Faisa is our next panelist. So, if Faisa would, I think if the mic is on, you have to press that, yeah. So if Faisa, if you would introduce yourself to the audience and then tell us a little bit, about your work, what inspires you, and we'll dive into we'll continue with the questions, and then, yeah. Wonderful. So if you introduce yourself and a bit about your work.
Yeah. My name is Faisa Qasim, and I am a co-owner of Peace and Wellbeing organization, and also I am author of Suuria unelmia, suomalaiset, jotka muuttavat maailmaa, Big Dreams about Finnish that are changing the world. And also I have been very active in Mentoring for Future project, and I am a project manager in that project. Then we were working in Mentoring Future project, and then we had the idea to write this book. And the book is for students, but also it's a good way for parents to talk about children with their dreams and things that they want to pursue in their life. And it's kind of like inspiring book. And also the work we are doing I'm doing some teaching for the teachers that it's how to make diversity in a classroom, and also this is one way to make the classroom diverse, and the children can see diverse people that are in different career paths.
Thank you so much, and thank you for joining us. So, before you came, we had already asked the ladies how many books you had written. I know you have 2 books out there, and do you have a favorite of them?
Actually, one of the books is written by Salado Qasim. Salado Qasim is our chairwoman in Peace and Wellbeing organization, and her book name is called Anisa Recycle. And that's very important. It's a way to teach children to recycle. Also, it's a way to parents to learn how to recycle, and of course is something that we want to encourage our children to be active in the society, and also it's a good way to see dark-skinned children that's represented. It's not about the book's not about difficult things. It's easy. It's a way to learn new things, and it's also how to build your community. So how to be doing something great for everybody. That's written by Salado, and I'm one of the writers in Suuria unelmia, Big Dreams book, and I'm so glad to be part of that. It's just, I think that was the book I needed when I was studying, because all the challenges that I have faced and all the things, this is something that give you hope, and also there is things that happen in life that make you question your path and your dreams, and sometimes you feel that, okay, maybe I'm gonna give up. But this book and the stories will encourage you. It will also increase your ability to think that, okay, I can do it. I have seen people that look like me that have pursued their dreams. So that's very, very important, and it's very important for other children also to see people that are different backgrounds.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I think we'll dive later into the whole African Afro-Finnish writing space and the challenges. But then just to still get on the fun stuff, I know this was a book project, but with the Anis book, like when you write and all in that process, do you drag your family into the process? Do you talk about the book with your family, or what do they think about your writing?
Salado have written that book, and I have 2 children, and I have used that book to teach them to recycle, and also for me to remember to do better. And also, it's a great way that you can bring your all the children together. We actually are planning to have an event that we will bring little kids together, and then just in a fun way teach them how to recycle. So you can use it in different ways, and also it's good that when I'm also using this book, it's not just for my kids, it's for every kids.
And then before then we continue, who is or which author inspired you? So who's your favorite author, or who inspires you when you write?
My favorite author is Salado Qasim. Salado is amazing, and the things that she talking about her book, and the idea was Salado's this Big Dream book, and it resonates with me because I felt that, okay, it's great. And it also inspired me to write another book about different things. We all have story to tell. We just need to take our time and thinking about things that really what we want to input in this world. How can we make this world a better place? And then just take a pen and paper and write it.
Wonderful, thank you. So I'll continue, and then I'll give the audience, space. So, would you say that in Finland's writing industry, could they be a little bit more open-minded when it comes to publishing, African and Afro-Finnish authors? And what would be one piece of advice you would give to publishing houses in Finland?
I think, they should, because we have great writers. We have people that have a great idea, books, but they just need that. Of course, we all need that opportunity. And then, in this book, Big Dreams, sometimes you have to make your opportunities. So we also need to open the doors for others and show them, okay, this is what we can bring to the tables. That will also diversify book industry and open doors.
What do you ladies think, Neymar and Wendy? Should they be more open-minded? What would be one advice to to them if they're out there watching later?
Yeah, definitely they should be. I mean, there's a lot of people who, as they have said, my colleague here, who have story or who are looking for publisher. When as I say, with my Facebook, I didn't even try to find a publisher in Finland because I don't think I'll get it. But then when my books came out and I was bringing it to the library, or some library would call me, or school, come and read a story and ask me, so were you published in Finland? I'm like, no, in US. And but get in touch with a publisher in Finland. Kind of, I got encouraged. So then the second book came, and I took that encouragement and really contacted the publishers here, and it didn't succeed. So in the end, my second book was published in UK. So what I'm saying is that I think as a non-Fin writers, we do not have a lot of network with the publishers. So maybe that's something. So event like this with Rosebud, I think it's good. I would like to applaud what Finnish Africa Seura is doing. We shouldn't be in our own corner, because we are here and this is our home too, and we have a story to tell, and we have our kids growing up in this society, so they need to see the story that reflects their experience as well. I mean, so there's a space, and there's work to be done, perhaps more network to be built. I think they are trying, because they are this application, so you can apply for funding if you're a writer, there's a Writers Association funding you can apply here in Finland. And I have applied a number of times, but I haven't been successful. And I don't know why, but maybe I didn't reach a certain target or something. But we just need to connect in this way that with the publishers, or have forum with the publishers, or somehow come together. Because I mean, what also writers, I know in Finland there's a lot of writers and a lot of beautiful books, but also there's a space for more diverse story to support other kids, support kids or people who are like in different situations. And she's saying that when she was growing up, she missed hearing those stories, and now she can write those stories for other kids. So definitely there's a space. Yeah.
I feel very ill-equipped to answer that question. I haven't lived here that long, to be honest. And most of the publishers that I've tried to approach, they always answered that, oh, we don't really publish anybody who doesn't write in Finnish. So, or I guess there might be some who might publish people who write in Swedish, but yeah, the answer has always been like, just as an inquiry, you know, since you don't write in Finnish, then, you know, you're out of that. So my Finnish is pretty terrible. So I have no hope in that area at all. It's going to take me many years to be able to write anything publishable in Finnish. Is there room for diversity? Of course, there is always room for diversity. And it's a wonderful thing, really. But I suppose, can I give any advice? I really can't. I don't even know how to fix the publishing industry. In Tanzania, where I've kind of lived most of my life. So how do I give like advice to the Finnish publishers? I don't have any comments on that one, so yeah.
I do think there's hope, definitely. I think the second year of FALA that we've seen on the list also more Afro-Finnish books. I think Nimko is here. She also has a book that we are featuring in FALA. And also, I think they also had the Anansi book, which is a collaboration between a Ghanaian author and Finnish illustrators, and they've been in talks for years. And then you have Ujuni Ahmed, and then you have Sexy Kasukla, and then your books, you know. So I think gradually, you know, it will change, or then eventually, you know, maybe we'll just set up a fund and give money to African and Afro-Finnish authors to write in whatever language they want. Because I think representation is really key. And that was one of the things that inspired us to even have the book exhibition in Audi, for example, on the 3rd floor. So I think as time goes on, the publishing houses would change. They'll come around eventually. I think it's changing. They'll come around.
Yeah. If I can add that, I think in UK, for example, they have this funding which is for the people of color, because they did the studies and saw that there's not many books which are written by people like which are not written by British writers. Very few. And that how much the kids and the young people who feel lost, you know, you live in a society and then when you find something that speaks to you, you don't find it. So purposely they decided to set that funding that they only for people of color, not like discriminatorily, but just trying to encourage, because there are many of them who are feeling what we are talking about here, like, okay, I don't have network, where do I start? I don't know anybody. And then probably the big publisher would want to publish somebody who they can, because I mean, it's a business. So they can't publish somebody and then the book will go flop, then they lose their money as well. So they want at least you have published before, or they know what you're doing. And I don't think it's a language, because my second book, we also published in Finnish. And when we were approaching the publishing company, the manuscript was in Finnish. And so it's not only about the language, it's you know, like if you're not known author, perhaps, you know, they don't jump in the ship very easily, but maybe when you have few books and they can trust that you can write, but then, so how do you start?
Yeah, I mean, exactly.
That's
someone has to give you that chance. So,
yeah.
I just wanted to sort of, this reminded me, I was very inspired by something Bernardine Evaristo said recently. Oh, I was watching it recently. Maybe she said it a long time. It's like writing in the margins is always really difficult. But I think there's always going to be people who have to sort of push the envelope a little bit and, introduce this sort of the impossible to people. So I think what these guys are doing, who have been here for a long time, who have only lived here, I think this is quite commendable. So that you're doing this against the odds, even though no one is giving you the opportunity, but you're making the opportunity. So I think that's very commendable. But yeah, and I think what we're going to do with kids to help them tell their stories, I think hopefully we get a new generation of writers that aren't afraid and are empowered to tell their stories, even when the mainstream doesn't always want to hear our stories. But we have the stories, and we will tell them whether they want to hear them or not. But it's not for them, it's for ourselves.
Exactly, and I really like that. So just now on the question, I'll start with you, Neymar. So do you ever hear from your readers, and what sort of things do they tell you? Do they... have you ever had your readers approach you like, I bought your book?
Well, so... one of my stories actually is read in schools in different countries. It's called, what is the name of my story? I'm Not My Skin. So it's about a person with albinism who's going through, against the odds. It's online, you can read it for free. So it's read in different schools, and I always get some really crazy questions from students. Some of them I think they're trying to get me to do their homework, really. Because they're like, ma'am, what happened? I was like, just read the story and you'll find out. But I get really interesting questions from different students, and I think it's very surreal, because when I was young, that was like what I could imagine, like the best writer is read in some class, and I'm like, oh my God, they're reading me in school. So it's a very surreal experience. They ask me different questions, honestly. Some clever ones that I don't know how to answer. I can't even remember the questions though, because it's always like a different question almost every semester. So yeah.
Yes, so I, in addition to write story, I also run this Swahili for Kids group here in Finland. So we meet from time to time. There's for example, the parents who have kids who are also with the origin in Tanzania, so not just only Tanzanian, but Finnish Tanzanian, or just Finnish parents who want their kids to get in touch with Tanzania culture. So we read stories in Swahili, and there I read my stories also, but not only my story, I also read others. So I get quite a lot of feedback there, and also in writing. I remember one time I went to read my book in Maunula primary school, and then so I read it, I think it was second grade, and we read, and after that, and then the child, it was this story of the lizard. After that, the child was like, life is really hard. You can die anytime. That's what I learned from your book. And I was like, I didn't, like when I was writing, I thought like it's more happy and all, and then, but she picked like, you can die anytime. So I was like, okay, maybe that's not the one I want. But anyway, I mean, it's just, if it makes her reflect like that, I think it's fun. But I think the most important, one of the most touching was, I think we had also, last year, there was this organization, this Nino cultural organization. They had a festival, so I was invited to read stories for the kids. And I remember one time I read my stories, and then the kids was just sitting here, didn't say anything throughout the time. And then at the end, she managed to speak, and she's like, when I grow up, I want to be an author. And to me, that was like, this is what we are talking all the time, just to give opportunity for kids to see different people of different size and color and whatever nationality, background, different story that are out there, and it could inspire. So I was just saying, like, so stuff like those, sometimes they come and they give you more inspiration to really, at night after I put my kids to sleep, to just open the computer and start typing. But yeah.
For us, we have a Mentoring for Future project, and in a Mentoring Future project that we also use this book, Big Dreams. We go to schools, we work with student counselors, and then we arrange different seminars, workshops for students. And sometimes it starts the same thing, that when you ask the children about what they want to do, and they have different ideas, some of them, and also sometimes we have workshops, and we have the books there, and then in the workshop we have this vision map, dreams, and then first student says, oh, I don't know what I'm gonna put in my vision map. And then when we tell them about the stories, they read about the stories, and then I give them different questions, ask them questions, then they start writing or choosing different kind of pictures. I want to be this, I want to learn that, and it's so exciting. And then you also see, and then it opens about different things they want to ask, but they are afraid to ask their teachers. And because of we are going there and telling our stories, it makes them more, I think, for example, one student asked me, have you ever seen someone or something, racism or something? He asked me, and I was so surprised, but at the same time I wasn't shocked, because that's not typically thing that they can ask in schools. Okay, what do I do if someone is racist to me or discriminate me? What do I do? And things like that. It opens also a different kind of different kind of way that they can communicate, and they feel that. And also we arrange people that come there and also share their stories. And also the books are one way. If we cannot be there, because we cannot go to all the schools, then the student counselors. That's one way that we provide these books for student counselors and students, that they can use it in different ways to encourage their students. And also we are arranging a workshop for parents and students. Sometimes it's good that parents and students talk about different things and also know what is my child's dream, what is the path or career they are interested. And sometimes also, as being a parent myself, we have also an idea what we want our child to be, but it's good that we can talk about things, and I can also explain why would I want them to learn things, but of course it's good that there is understanding and there is a safe place. So also in the school, it's good to have a safe place that you can talk about your dreams. If you feel that you don't trust the person, or something happened in school is not very welcoming, not diverse, then you cannot talk about the things that really are bothering you, or if you felt things that you don't want to share. You have to feel safe to express those things. And then also we have upcoming, and we had like 3 photo exhibition in Helsinki and in Fanta, and also this photo exhibition is about the book. So that's also one way for student counselors, teachers to bring the children and see in an art form these people that have shared their beautiful stories, inspiring stories, and feel inspired.
And I must say, the book is really intriguing because, I mean, years back when I came, the story along the lines were always that, they suggest a particular career for all immigrants, lahihoitaja, all the time. So, yeah. I mean, your book is, I would say, very audacious and bold in the context that Suri, like big dreams, dream big, go big or go home, and it's really beautiful because when you have the book, and I have one of my really good friends, Priscilla, Studio P, whose story is there, which is interesting because Priscilla is not a photographer, but just carved out a niche for herself, just like that, and you have people like Wali Hashi, and, so for me, I feel the book I'm just putting it out there, should be like a mandatory book in high schools, just saying. Because then, you know, kids can dream big. You know, I don't necessarily have to go with what my counselor says I have to do, you know. Because you tend to hear that story a lot, like, you should all go do this. But I'd say I'm really proud and really commend you guys for putting it out there. So it's a really amazing book, and you can tell the different stories, because you know you have Wambuya doing something totally different, Priscilla doing something else, and then Wali Hashi doing something else. So it's like really broad. So it's really inspiring. So well done. I'll just end with one question, and then we'll go to the audience. So what do you like to do when you're not writing? Let's start with you.
Working in a peace and well-being organization, I do a lot of voluntary work, and also because that's my passion, I want to do the things that change the world and make it a better place. And also I want to all the children, all the students, all the teachers feel that they have also, the teachers, they need tools, they need different ways of support that we can, of course, provide for them. That's why it's also good that, okay, sometimes they hear, okay, how to make class diverse, but they don't have the tools. So we are here. And also that will make the school more welcoming, safe place, and that's the thing that for my childhood, the trauma that I went through, that now I'm working through, that no child shouldn't go through the things. Yeah, and for me, I can of course share my story. There was this teacher that said to me, give up, you're not gonna be graduated in this school. She said, you're not gonna be nothing. And that strikes me, and I wanted to go and not come back to that school. I wanted to. And then my sister encouraged me. She said to me, you have to prove her wrong. You have to take this as a challenge and prove her wrong. So now I have graduated that school and I have shown her, but I also have to show other children, we are here, you're not alone.
And what about you, Wendy? What do you love to do when you're not writing?
No, when I'm not writing, I'm reading. Of course, that's like a full-time job I have, that I'm working as a development cooperation sector. But when I'm not writing, I'm reading. And then, as I say, I keep this storytelling for kids. So we have every other Saturday, Swahili, bringing kids, like Swahili is one of the languages that is spoken in more than 6 countries, like as a main, and then with others, like as far as Madagascar and then you know, even outside in Arab world. So I just do storytelling for kids. I feel like I get a lot of my inspiration from kids, and my inspiration from writing are coming from the kids. So even when I'm on the storytelling and something would come up that okay, maybe I can write about this, maybe I can write. So I'm all the time feeding into each other, yeah.
How many do you want?
All of it. All of it.
Well, of course there's read, although these days because of my studying, which means I'm reading all the time, I've gotten into audiobooks, so I enjoy listening to audiobooks. I like to walk in the forest it's great inspiration, and I always have good ideas when I'm walking in the forest. Love hanging out with my nieces and nephews. I have 12 from my siblings, so whenever I can, they're in different countries, so it would involve traveling. But yeah, I love doing that. Korean dramas, that is a real addiction.
What's your favorite Korean drama?
I mean, do you have time for it? I don't have a favorite. I love so many. But I have some favorite like actors and stuff whose work I must watch all the time. So yeah, there's Korean dramas. Yeah, of course, like maybe going to dinner with my husband also on the list. So that's just a suggestion, Aki. You know, you can take me to dinner, and that would be like in my top 5.
Great. Wonderful. Thank you so much. I will hold off the questions here, and maybe we'll take some questions from the audience. I will, if we give one of the microphones to the audience, and then you can share with mine. So if we have any questions.
I can share with
Okay. I'll come down and...
I'm asking you two from Tanzania, Tanzanian female writers, that did you get at all inspired of the Nobel writer from Zanzibar, Abdulaziz Gurna, or how do you feel about his writing?
Yes, I got is it on? I got very inspired by Gunnar, and actually I met him when he was here, was it in May? Yeah, so I met him, yeah, exactly. So, but I read now almost all of his book, and they are here also in libraries. So, I mean, the libraries, like one thing that I really enjoy also, the Finnish library, is that sometimes they are very like up to date. So then when Gunnar, I think perhaps earlier, but immediately when he became Nobel, they were in the library. So of course, even if you can be in the, so there's some I bought myself, and there's some I'm borrowing from the library, but I got really inspired, and then I remember when I read this Afterlives, his book, which I think it had been translated in Finnish, Lopo Elämä or something like that. And it was, just reading and then reading about the, the streets in Zanzibar. It really takes home, because like most of the time you read the novel of all this, like all the writers from US, from UK, and you can relate, because there's a lot of experience as human being. It doesn't matter. You could be from Tanzania, you could be from Finland, but there are those experiences that transcends us as being human being. But then you go to another level where you read something of the place you have been, or of the experience you've been, and he's mixing with Swahili inside. I was just like, oh my God, I'm home. So I'm just very inspired, and I talked to him when he was here, and that to just tell him that what he's doing is really inspiring all of us. So super proud. Yeah.
When he was actually announced the winner, we were having the African Writers Conference at the University of Dar es Salaam almost that same day, or was it the next day? So it was kind of a really cool moment to see a Tanzanian, we were claiming him. I don't know if he's claiming us. He's a Zanzibari for now. The rest of us were just like latching on to his identity. But I think it was very... I think the possibility was something that really, for me, was something that someone from this neck of the woods can get there, It was very, very interesting. But I will be honest with you, because he writes in English. In Tanzania, though, a lot of people hadn't read his work. So the Nobel is actually opening up maybe the door for more Tanzanians to read his work. So yeah, it was a very interesting moment. You're very proud, but then you're also ashamed. Like, I didn't even know this guy existed, kind of situation. I did know, though. I got a book present from someone, my friend Eva from Hanken, before he got the Nobel. So thanks to Eva, I wasn't completely ignorant, but I would have been if it weren't for her. So just imagine that was the actual reality. But yeah.
Thank you so much for the question. Yes, Kathy.
Okay, thank you for the great panel. I have a question. I think everyone can answer if you want, but Wendy, you said in the beginning that you were looking for some values that you didn't find in the books here while you were reading to your child. Can you say specifically what kind of values you think that the books here couldn't deliver that you were looking for? And everybody can answer if you feel like.
So maybe it's not like specific value, but I like very basic value. I grew up in Tanzania, and even like simple things like respect and or if you see older person and you are sitting, you just give them a chair. Like there's very simple things that I don't have to really like take a lot of time to really dig, but they come automatic. So I just want, perhaps there was there. So a disclaimer there, I can't say that I read all the book and I didn't find those values. Perhaps those values were in the books, but then also I just wanted that the familiar things that build me to the, I think I'm a responsible citizen, that I am, and then I wanted to kind of pass those to my kids. Yeah, exactly. And then the sort of the African, because I mean my kids are also African, so those values that would help them to identify when they stand against others, that they can say like what thing define them. So that's what I was looking when I started to write. But perhaps it's also there, but I didn't find it. Yeah.
Yeah. I think great answer. I think what we are looking for is, of course, when we talk about books, something that also the things that we have learned in home, the simple things that, okay, respect. If there is an older person, then you can. There was one workplace that I was working as a volunteer, and then they asked me to stop bringing tea to elderly Somalian women because they said they can go and get it themselves. But this is our culture. This is our culture. So in books, when you read, you also want to see those things that. The values, the things that you, of course, it's just something that you grow up with. That's part of you, that you feel that, okay, the book writer, the author understands me.
But just a follow-up to that, do you think now are books changing? Are they getting that? I think maybe not in Finland, but I mean, because I read to my daughter, and we've read several books from UK or the States, so like Bedtime Bonnets, where it's so ingrained, the culture and things, you know, that you have to do. And it's really changing because she can always see herself also in these books. So, you know, she knows that, okay, with my kind of hair, curly, I need to have a bonnet. And then she's like, do I have a bonnet? I'm like, not yet. You know, we'll get there. But, you know, but do you think it's changing? Because, you know, with the libraries, for example, do you think they're up in the game when it comes to, you know, pushing those values, like Kati said? Like, is it changing?
Maybe I think yes, but yes, it's coming, but it's also not there. Like if you look at this, majority of the books, like even if they are written by African author, like we are talking about African American, you know, or then we are talking about like if it's writers of color in UK, they are from Jamaica. So of course there are those similarities, and we all look different, and we want, for example, our kids to see the character with the afro hair, or with the hair that is not straight. I mean, so like because I remember my kid when she was in daycare, one day she came home crying. Like, why my hair is not straight? I hate this, you know, like that. And immediately I was like, okay, now it's time to find books. And I bought books, a lot of, you know, like just that. And every evening we would be reading, look at this, she's beautiful. You know, like, then I feel like you are doing a lot of work to kind of make, because then like if they are different or they feel like in the class everybody look similar, but except them, maybe it's a hair, maybe something, maybe, I know it can be anything. It can be they don't speak so well, or it could be they have some kind of disability or anything. So then I was just finding the books, and every evening we'll just look at this hair. It's African, it's puffy, it's beautiful, and you just do it over and over. I remember my husband was just saying like, hey, I think you should stop it. He's just 6. I'm like, no, you get them like this. This is exactly the age where you just build their foundation, that they know who they are. And then when they go out there, like even if their hair is whatever, they can just say, I'm beautiful. I don't have to look a certain way like that. So I think it is there, but there's a need for more. Yeah.
As a person who doesn't have children and don't write for children, I don't really care about, I don't know, values in that way, because I feel like sometimes it's about the story, and stories have different things. So there's no like I'm trying to teach anyone a lesson in this situation. I'm just telling a story, and it's all in the service of a story. There's a villain and there's always a good person. Good people do bad things and bad people do good things. So it's always for me, like maybe at the core of it, the human experience, and not so much that I want to teach anyone values in any shape or form. I don't know. It's for me, because I don't write for children, maybe I don't really think about it at all. Yeah.
Do we have any more questions? I did see a hand from that side. No questions? No. So then I think this gives me an opportunity to sort of dive into my many more questions. So let's dive into your mindsets. I came prepared, trust me, and we have time. How long does it take when you want to write a book? And what is your work schedule like? And like, when you're writing, and do you have like a preparatory process or a journey when you write? Do you have to, I don't know, dance in the moonlight maybe 3 times around in a circle or something? Just wondering, just for the audience, like let's get into your writing process. So we'll start with Neymar.
Because she started when she was 12. She have a lot to tell.
A lot of experience, so.
I have a poem about it somewhere. It's something about, I don't know. I'm a poet, and so poems don't come easy. So I take instructions from the wind. I don't remember the exact words of a poem, okay, so forgive me for that. But it's like, you know, I take instructions from the wind or the grass. It tells me what to do. So, stare at sun rays and see how they filter through the leaves for half an hour. See if it works. I don't really know if I have a process. There's incubation where you just experience a lot of different things, and that's just the experiencing part of it. And then there is then the filtering of it or the processing of it, and that's always the process why I look very lazy, because there's nothing coming out of me. I'm just like, maybe it's brewing and it's fermenting and it's just there, but it's not ready to be like even on paper. So it's me and my paper, and we're looking at each other, and there's nothing coming out of me, and the paper is just like, okay, anything today? Nope. Keep building it up, and then someday, by some miracle, when I'm sitting there in the process of trying to write, something happens while I'm crafting a sentence, and there's like a tiny bit of magic that comes through the words. But it's a very maybe mechanical process of just sitting in front of a computer or in front of, I don't know, blank page if you're doing notebooks like I am, and just trying to get things out there. But sometimes it's difficult because nothing comes out. Yeah, I don't know if I answered at all.
Yeah,
but
and
yeah.
so you would say it takes a long time. So when you hit a writer's block, what do? You just relax.
I have a lot of poems about writer's block.
We should be expecting those on the FALA page, definitely. Yeah.
I have one that's like, haunt me again or something like that, because I'm imagining this like poetry as this enchanting situation, and I want it to haunt me so I can write. Yeah, so.
Yeah. But what about you, Wendy? What's your process, preparatory process and journey? And
Well, my process is reading. As I say, I wasn't a writer, and then I don't. To me, I love stories. That's for sure. From early on, I used to love stories, and I remember when I was young, I would be waiting because the grandmother, they have the best stories. So I remember, like, even when my neighbor, our grandmother used to live far in the countryside and wouldn't come to visit often, but we would go there. But I had my neighbor where the grandmother would come often. And the minute she tell the grandmother is here, I am there first. It's not like I just miss that grandmother, but like, okay, tell us a story, like that. So I have been always loving story, and I started writing only when I wanted to write for my daughter here. So I know that this is a skill that I want to perfect it, to grow it, and so I have some process. I'm not that like I have some process, and I think the key for me is this discipline in this way, that because I have full-time job, and then when I put my kids to sleep, that's when I open my computer. So at least I have at least 1 hour every evening that I'm, like putting my thought inside the paper or the computer, and kind of try to be consistent, because otherwise you will just be burdened with everything that's happening. But also another thing in the process is reading. I read a lot of children books. Like if you come to my house, you will just think that we have, like I said, daycare or something. Because I want inspiration from also other writers. I want to see what are the issues. So, and then I want to be better as a children author. I want to be better than every time as I go on, I want to be better and better. So I all the time read for other authors, and then try to take some courses, and then go into co-creation workshop. From September, I will be in one workshop organized by Goethe Institute here in Finland, where what they're doing, they're having a workshop of people of color in Europe, the writers of people of color within Europe. So then it's a workshop and co-creation almost. So together so I'm into developing myself, because I know that I don't have it within me. Like I would just write, but I know I have to work in order to bring something.
Do you read like adult works since you write only children's?
I read
books?
adult work. Yeah.
Faisal, what's your process?
Can you tell me the question?
Yeah, so the question was that we're diving into your mindset, how long it takes if you have a project, like with this book project, what was like the process or the journey to get to, the final work?
Yeah, in this Mentoring for Future project, I think making this book, it was took us approximately less than 6 months. And of course, we didn't write we just share the stories of other people. And of course, the main thing was that we go through the stories and see the stories are really what we are looking for. They are inspiring, they are motivating, and also they are different stories. And then the people that we wanted to be part of the books, that also took time to, of course, contact them, and also share them that what we are doing, and ask them to be part of it. But now when I'm writing my book, and I think sometimes it's a great way, I like to read different books. And with that different books, and also when I'm arranging different courses, the ideas that come to the things that I'm teaching to other people, to also add that to my next book. But I do the same thing after my children are asleep. I also have that time period that I can do the things that I wanted. And also every Monday I have a free day for myself, that I don't, of course I do some other work if I want it, but that time I can write the book and just take my time.
I should add something. When I talked about all this waiting in the wind, that was for poetry. But if I'm writing, say, fiction or nonfiction, there's also a lot of research that goes into the work. Like, for example, one of the stories that I'm Not My Skin story that I told you about earlier. Since I'm not a person living with albinism, there's a lot of research that I had to do specifically so I can write a character that is more realistic, and that like someone can say this is true. But also, like about the places that I write about, and just generally how to make it more authentic is to go through a lot of research. But with poetry, there is no rhythm to that. I honestly have no idea how I write poetry. I think sometimes it's just like an outer world experience.
Can I come back?
Yes. If the audience still no questions, Oh, yes.
I love that question because I don't create art for art's sake all the time. I really want to. It's like aspirational only, but I feel like being a woman in this society, I can't even afford to do that because everything is activism sometimes. Existing is activism. Like, just to be happy and smile today after all the crazy that you have to go through in the world to just survive. It's and I was talking to this with someone recently, like, can we afford for art not to be political, especially the way the world is organized now? There is so much inequality. There is so many problems. Can you afford to be that you can't see it? And so for me, poetry has always been a way to see the world, in some way. And I've done a lot of activism. A lot of my poetry has often looked up about gender-based violence, and just generally gender inequality in Tanzania specifically, because I went through abuse when I was a kid. So that was for me my way of sort of dealing with it. So it's not like I can't even when I want to create for art's sake. Sometimes there's going to be healing through the poetry. Sometimes there's going to be activism through the poetry. And I remember we used to do a lot of activism when I was in Tanzania. Still, we would do a lot of events, especially to address gender-based violence. So I think it was very interesting. One reason I started sort of branching out of it is because now everybody thought every time I get on stage, oh, she's that feminist poet, who's going to talk about violence and make everybody cry. My parents once even came to me and said, after one Woman Scream event that we had done, it's like an international poetry festival that addresses gender-based violence across the world. So people organize poetry events all over. So we did in Tanzania several installments. After this particular event, and I remember the poem was from maybe from the perspective of a 14-year-old child. So I went home, and my parents are sitting after they've heard me perform and seen me perform quite intensely. They're sitting, it's like 1 a.m., and they're saying, were we such bad parents that we didn't protect you? I was like, this is a persona poem. I have to explain poetry to my parents that, it's not about me necessarily, because everything I've gone through, but this is like me painting a picture of a world through different characters sometimes. And so, yes, the role of poetry, yes, heal, be, speak truth to power. I think poetry does that really well. You can use metaphors. You can use a lot of things where, especially where people are stifled, they can speak about certain things. And I think poetry there comes to be a very powerful tool. They can jail a lot of people, except some, abstract people, because they can't tell what you're saying. You interpret it this way. Are you sure this is what I meant? Kind of. So there's a little bit of coating that goes. But also, I feel like he does give voice to people, and that's what's so important to poetry. So yeah, I don't do it for just the art's sake, because I can't afford to. I would love to once the world is all equal and where, then I can definitely just create to create. But now, just the process of creating and saying things that affect me, for example, as a woman, that already is an act of activism, even though it wasn't. I'm just stating an experience here, but we can't afford to just say that this doesn't do more, because our world is so, unequal and unjust in so many levels, yeah.
Great. Any more questions? Yes, please, Yoni.
You need the mic.
Yes.
Well, I think I just say, thanks for our lovely conversation so far. I was wondering, there's a lot of talk here in Finland about kind of people's reading habits being affected by technology. Hi. So, yeah, let me just reiterate. So there's a lot of talk about the effects of digitalization and technology affecting our access on the one hand, but concentration as well. But I was wondering, since you might also have some insights on the reading habits at the moment in Tanzania, do you have any comments on or thoughts? How are people reading these days?
how are people reading these days? I think we're consuming content in so many different ways. You have people who are reading a lot on social media or like this very short little thing. Actually, I have a story about my mom. Somehow she's sort of obsessed with these things that come through Facebook, and it's like a reading of a story, and then that ends somewhere, and then the story doesn't end. You have to pay for you to continue reading. So she's always telling me like she's frustrated. She started reading the story and she loves it, but then she has to pay some dollars and she doesn't have it, like a working credit card or something, or she doesn't want to use her credit card because she doesn't know. So I think it's providing opportunities. Honestly, if I'm gonna be completely honest, technology is providing more opportunities because I'll give an example from where my parents come from, the village. There is no library anywhere nearby, right? And if there's no library, there are no books that kids can access, and you can put up a physical library there, and it will be really like transformational because you really need those physical books. But to put up a building, and I've been trying to do this, I can't afford it yet, so it's like now a building, there's a lot of grass around it. I haven't put a single shelf in them. But if you have a computer, for example, you can already have access to so much more. So I feel like there is an opportunity there in terms of, yes, people have changed the way they read, but there's also like an opportunity to reach more people with your written material. But also there's also a diversity of media. Yes, our concentration is getting, I don't know, goldfish, less than goldfish, I don't know. I can't keep up now how bad it is. But on the other hand, there's also a lot of potential as well for us as creators to think in what other ways can we reach people. We are here saying that, for example, a lot of Finnish writers or Finnish publishers don't want to publish our stories as people of African descent or, as the others. But there's opportunities out there through Facebook, through, I don't know, Instagram, there's a lot of opportunities. For me, I see it as a positive thing that there is so much diversity of media that you can use. I see it as an opportunity rather as a limitation, just because the traditional formats are so binding and so, I don't know, the trade is so controlled. But now you can just publish your book on Amazon and people can download the ebook and read it. And I feel like that is so empowering for people who've always been on the margins, on the fringes, really, of mainstream society.
Wendy, you want to add that?
I agree. I think Neymar have covered almost everything, but just to add also for writer, technology is really good in this way. Also, you can have community outside your physical location. So, for example, I am in a writers community of children's book also across the globe, where if I write my work, I can send to somebody to critique or to give me feedback about it, and then also I can read other people, and then I can, so the community you can get if you're, let's say, for example, if you are limited by language, if you're here, but then your Finnish language is not top notch and you cannot get, but you can get with other, and then also here, and then it's good. But I feel like technology itself is not like if I would put myself as a reader, and if I would take a child in Tanzania in a countryside. Like technology itself is not a panacea. It's not an answer to everything, because then when the technology comes to the society, it just exacerbates what's the situation. So if the situation was good to begin with, then it gets better, and then it provides access. But if the situation was worse, like if the kids wouldn't have it, even the book with, even the technology wouldn't cover it, there will be a lot of people who are left behind, and only those who can afford to have those media where they can read, that's the one who will benefit. But yeah.
Okay, so I'm not seeing any questions. So I have one fun one, and then we'll close, and then we'll check out the... So we have copies of the books from all three of you over there. And then we also have some postcards from the society, so you can talk to the authors and, buy the books, they can sign them for you and talk to them more and all that. But one fun question, and then we'll close with a more serious one. What did you want to do when you grew up? Faisa, what did you want to be?
Write
when
about dreams,
Yeah.
so you're first.
We'll start with you, since yours is about big dreams.
Okay, I think I have more things that I want to do. So, and I didn't know that thing, it was option for me. For example, coding is something that I want to learn and teach. And also this being author, it was a dream come true, and then it opens the door for me to do more, to write more. And now when I'm reading book, I read book differently, thinking about, okay, maybe this I can take some ideas. And then, of course, teaching, that's also something that I felt that was my calling, to teach. When I learn new things, I want to also teach to other people, and that also gives me a great feeling. And then the knowledge is just not for me. I can share it. That's also a great thing. And then I'm doing some DIY things, and I'm thinking about, okay, this is going to be my next business idea, and sometimes it's just idea, and then I just give up, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to continue. For example, skincare was something that I was passionate about, hair care, and I think we don't have to limit ourselves, because when we grow up, we still are growing. We can have multiple dreams, multiple things that we can learn, but then, of course, we have small time that in the day, but of course, we can just, I learned that one of my favorite things is also be very organized. I try to be organized, and then thinking about, okay, what do I learn today that I can use it later? And I think I have different things that I want to achieve. Of course, one of the things is open a business that motivates people. I have different business idea, and that's also something that when we were doing another project that was about entrepreneurs, that also encouraged me. So sometimes when we are doing this kind of volunteer work, encouraging others, you feel that, okay, you get also inspired to do something. Yeah.
Right. So keep dreaming, basically. Don't stop dreaming.
Can I add one thing?
Yes.
And also I want to go back to Somalia and Africa. I want to learn Swahili. And also the books needs to also be translated to Swahili. And also I think the work next year, we will try to do some work that is teaching teachers that are in different countries, third world countries. And that is a great experience, because I had opportunity to be here in Finland, and I think I can use it, some of the things that I have been provided here, and then take it back. And sometimes when I go back, you see children that just I want to go to school, and that's kind of heartbreaking for women to get that education, something that I want to be part of, to help them to get access. And of course the books that now we were talking about, the media, and there I want to do something that if you are, for example, that where you're born doesn't define what you can do. Yeah. So that will be a great thing, that we can use the technology to teach to the things that we have here in Finland or other countries, the knowledge that we have in schools, universities, that they can provide and use that to different countries. And then they can get the same level of education, and we will build our people also. And I think that would be a great thing to see, that your family members that have left behind out there, they can have a better future.
Well, thank you so much. So, Wendy, What did you want to be when you
First of all, 3 years ago, when the book Becoming from Michelle Obama came, there was this line that we should stop asking kids, what are you going to be when you grow up? Because the life is all about becoming. Like it's not a destination. I mean, you're constantly, as she have said, we are, as human beings, we are constantly evolving and we want something and like it's not a destination. Like you want to be a teacher and then you're a teacher, done. But it's just, it's really a process, and it's just so, I can't recall when I wanted to be when I was growing up, but at least I know that I've always wanted to be better. So that's and always, like, I'm just such a learner, not learner like the school maybe, but learner just different, like into startups or into, just my own writing. So I want to start something new and to become better in that thing. So I'm constantly evolving, I would say, as a person, and so that's what I guess I wanted to be, and then that's what I'm still doing, that I want to. So you say keep on dreaming, and then I would say another thing, keep on learning, because they say also the minute you stop learning, and it's not like learning from the book, even just observing what is around your environment, something you didn't know from somebody or whatever, that's when you stop sort of existing. So keep dreaming, you say it, I say keep learning. Yeah.
Neymar.
I guess I wanted to be whatever I was obsessed with at the time. I remember I was quite obsessed with reading detective stories. For some years, if you ask me anything, I'm going to be a detective when I grow up. And then I remember I used to be obsessed with like Ronaldinho, so I used to say, I'm going to play soccer and maybe meet him. It would be like a soccer power couple or something. That was World Cup 98. Oh, no, not 98. That was 2002. Yeah, I'm super obsessed. Then I was obsessed with, theater. So I used to think I'm going to be a theater actor, even though I'm probably not a very good actor, but I was very obsessed with it. So for some years, I was like so convinced that after studying physics, chemistry, and math in my A-level, I was still going to be a theater actor. And then I was obsessed with, chemicals and radioactivity. So chemical engineering was somewhere there at some point, and then I realized maybe not. I also was I was not really obsessed. I had a heart condition, so I went to see a cardiologist so many times. And I said, I'm going to be a cardiologist. And my brother said, you have to go to medical school. But to go to medical school, you have to take biology in A-level, and you have to dissect a rat and a frog or whatever. And then I was like, okay, so goodbye that dream, and so that was the end of it. I never thought though I would be a writer, because I almost just wrote. I didn't really think of it as like a career when I was younger. I used to think, you just write and have fun, but not really like have a job as a writer, yeah.
So keep dreaming, keep learning, and just keep evolving and learn. Keep learning. And just
well, I can't say that. Everything I used to dream about, I became none of that. Because I feel like I was dreaming, I was kind of like living in a parallel world where I'm like dreaming about all the possibilities of what I could be. And then here I am studying like something very specific. You're studying accounting and you're dreaming about being something else. I feel like there was a little bit of a disconnect between my dreams and my reality. So there was, a point that they were going to intersect. I don't really think there was ever going to be a point. But you asked me what I wanted to be when I was younger. But yeah, I think for me, it was what I ended up becoming was finding out what I was good at and what I loved at the same time. And also, I may be a little bit rebelling from my parents. What they think I should do is the exact opposite thing I'm going to do. So I don't know. It's like a series of things that I have. I hadn't really thought them through when I was making the decisions, honestly. So in some way, I'm lucky that I'm here and doing whatever I am doing and liking it. But I was not making the right decisions when I was younger. Honestly, I was just like, Mom says you should consider chemical engineering, even though I used to like it. No, I'll take accounting, thank you. And, that kind of thing. So for me, it was always like just discovering and trying out different things. I wasn't really having like a serious plan of life. So kids don't listen to me.
Yeah, but it's really good because I think growing up in the African homes, I mean, I'm from Ghana, and your parents tell you what to do, what to study, you know. And I recall I wanted to be a journalist. I did. I really, because I was good with public speaking. I wasn't shy. But somehow my dad's way of discouraging me was letting us watch the rise and fall of Idi Amin. I don't know if how many of you know Idi Amin, you know, this dictator. And this particular film, back then in the 90s, they would show Idi Amin had somehow, you know, back then he was just... So these white journalists had come to report something, and they killed them and shoved them in the car and pushed their car there. And every time it would get to that scene, it'd be like, see what happens to journalists? And I was like, well... I guess I'll scratch off, you know, journalism off, because I was really inspired by this woman on the GTV. She would always dress in the African fabric, and she was so eloquent and very classy, and I was just so inspired. But every single time, see what happens? So then I stopped. But then I started writing books, and because he would have these books that were published by the Asempa publishers. They had this African Publishers Association way back then. So were these really amazing books, so Chinua Achebe. And I recall I wrote a whole book, you know, by myself, you know. And somehow it's like, yeah, but how are you going to feed your family on that? You know, so it's always... I like that. Don't listen to your parents. Don't listen to us. I think we need to have this generation that, you know, we encourage kids to dream, to become, and, you know, explore and try new things. So I'm really happy that you three and you guys out there, everyone, you know, serve as an example for up and coming or budding, you know, young writers. That, hey, it may seem tough, but you definitely try it. You never know. So I'm hoping that your stories will inspire people out there. Buy the books, read them, follow them, please talk to them, and stay inspired. And yeah, but I think we will end here. I'd like to say a very huge thank you to Rosebud for hosting us and for being open to this whole idea. So we're really grateful to Rosebud for hosting us. And I would also love to say thank you so much to our lovely ladies, Neymar, Wendy, and Faisa, and for being here and sharing your story and your works with us. And also to the audience, thank you so much for taking time on a lovely Saturday. So many things to do, but being here, and then also to our online audience, hi and thank you. And just to wrap up, just a quick reminder that the FALA project is still continuing till next year, February 2023. So Kathy is in the audience, so if you have any questions about FALA, you can always ask her. So September 10th, we have our FALA Live event in Anantalo, and the ladies will be joining us. So we like to invite you. It's a family activity and it's free. So it's sponsored by Moniheli, the city of Helsinki. There will be some cultural performances, some speeches, some dances, some food, and then some other organizations and books. So join us. And then also if you have a library card, visit Audi, the Helsinki Library. On the 3rd floor, they have 6 bookshelves that you know, showcasing diverse books. So all these books are books by African or Afro-Finnish or Black authors, and they're in different languages. I think Swahili, Somali, German. So from Chimamanda to Wendy to you name it. So all the books are there. So just go there on the 3rd floor with your library card, and they have books for kids as well. Yeah, so on that note, thank you everyone, and let's enjoy the networking, and let's buy some books. Yes, thank you so much. A round of applause for our ladies.